What we're going to do for a few minutes is recognize Eric Epstein for his years of service to SWAN. He's stepping down, I hear, and as a journalist, that's caused me to launch into a big investigation to figure out what he's going to be doing.
Are you a part of this?
Now, this is an off-the-record event, so anything I heard tonight will not be reported, and everything I'm sharing with you has not been confirmed. But I have a few things that he may be doing. One person at the coffee shop told me he's going to be starting a monastery and getting into that kind of thing. Has that worked with you?
With the Jewish monastery thing? Yeah, we're opening it in North Korea. There's a lot of growth.
And then we recognize Joe Murphy's here with the Lower Paxton Township Historical Commission. Even though it's beyond Lower Paxton, I don't know. Did you know that in Middle Paxton Township there was a nudist colony at one time? It's right above where Felicity used to be. I've heard that Eric's going to try and revive that. That should be very interesting.
There's nothing to see at a Jewish nudist colony.
And then I introduced Eric to pro wrestling a few years ago.
Yes, you did.
And I hear one rumor is you're going to be starting a career in pro wrestling as a manager of a female tag team.
Yes, that's right. It's a kosher female tag team. We'll be wrestling only on Saturdays.
Last but not least, this is a little bit more maybe what's going to happen with environmental bent. He's going to try and turn the Beaver Creek into a trout fishery. That might be a challenge.
Filter fish, yeah.
Three of us are going to share something about Eric. I'm going to kick things off. I did have some notes here, yes. I wasn't here when SWAN started, but there was a lot of people in this room, we're not going to go through a list, that have helped SWAN do what it's done for how many years now? I don't know, 15?
2006, Eileen and Betty, does that sound right?
Over 13 years.
Well, now that DeSanto's not here, we should have started it sooner.
But I think it's a great asset SWAN has become because it's an outlet for citizens to interact with government in a group. So many times when people go up to deal with things, they do it as a one person, a one-man band, and that's tough to do. SWAN has given people some place to go to, and I think it's good that we're not trying to stop development, we're trying to just have it done responsibly. So that's a good theme and one that I certainly support. Where are my notes here? But as far as Eric and his involvement, he's certainly been the driving force, and we thank you for that, Eric. He's been called at least three things I've heard him called. Activist with a bite. That was one he used for this campaign.
That was a winner, wasn't it?
Yeah. In all honesty, Eric, you did one heck of a job. I mean, you were not that far behind Mr. Lewis.
I love that.
I've heard people in the utility industry call him a gadfly. But here's what I call Eric. This is what the three things I call Eric: a leader, public servant, and most importantly, a friend. So I thank you for that. Next up, Eileen Hurley.
Hope this is the money presentation.
Hi, I'm Eileen Hurley. I've been the secretary of SWAN since the beginning. And Eric, it's been my pleasure to work with you for over 13 years with SWAN. And I thank you for being my mentor and in this endeavor. You have the gift of knowing people's strengths and weaknesses. You are able to help them and your goal at the same time. Too tight. Unfortunately, we never worked on public speaking for me. But it's not a problem. This works. For me. I have a word to express your spirit, a word that you use very frequently. No, not that word.
Thank you. It's a church, Pastor, I know.
This is a Hebrew word meaning peace, harmony, wholeness, completeness, prosperity, welfare, tranquility, and it can be used idiomatically to both mean hello and goodbye. And the word is
Shalom.
shalom.
Shalom, Paisa.
Shalom, my dear friend.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
appreciate it. Oh, that's
Okay, I've carved out 30 seconds for Mark Levine.
I thought it'd be 30 seconds or less, okay? I didn't realize that it's going to be strictly talking about Eric, but, so first thing I want to do is I want to thank all the members of the organization. Without the members, there is no organization. Eric has been a terrific part of the organization. We've seen the organization shrink, we've seen the organization grow, we've seen the organization be looked upon by the township as being anti-township, and then eventually our reputation came into being. Going along with what Bill said, people can come to our organization and they can express their problems. We look into the problems and then we try to find solutions. Once we find what we think would be a reasonable solution, then we approach the township and try and work with the township in order to have an amicable agreement. I'd like to thank all the officers of the organization and past officers who have been there. And I'd also like to thank Eric for doing his due diligence. We don't know how he did it all to still come to our meetings, report all the stuff he's done, and still be able to earn a living. But we do know one thing, and that is, of all the time I've known Eric, which is well over the 10 years, something special happened, and that was Vera.
That was wonderful, Mark. It really was.
Yeah,
Last but not least, John Frame.
that's my job.
Congratulations.
Talking about what?
That was great.
Mazel tov. 30 seconds.
The first time I met Eric was at a SWAN meeting a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago. And my first impression was, oh my God, look at this wild man, right? This is going to be interesting. I had no idea how interesting it was going to be. So, it's been a journey for the last couple of years with Eric. And I wanted to just point out one vignette. The first meeting I was at, there was a developer that was invited. And the developer was giving his spiel, and he said something that just didn't seem right. And he said it again and again and again. Finally, I couldn't help myself. I was like, can I ask a question? Absolutely. I don't know, Eric. And he's like, absolutely. So I asked the developer the question, and the developer stuck to the party line. Asked him again. Stuck to the party line. I did my best Columbo. I don't understand. And in the meantime, what Eric did is he slipped a piece of paper over towards me. He doesn't know who I am. Slips this piece of paper, which answers the question that I'm asking. And I look over and I see this body language like, keep it up, keep it up. I'm like, oh, this is fun. Afterwards, Eric told me, sometime, he goes, that was great, John. Well, no, he didn't. He said, Irishman, that was great. I said, you sure? He goes, yeah, because I realize that sometimes when I'm talking, people tune me out. So I have to know when to bring other people in that at different times will, be able to give the same message, but somebody else will be able to hear on it. And I thought that was a really outstanding example of leadership. And I haven't forgotten. So I think in many ways, Eric, in his own way, his own unique way, is an example of leadership. And he brings vision to the organization. The idea of the township, the developers and members, us, all coming together looking for solutions And, you know, it's one thing that we continue to do, look for solutions to sometimes really difficult problems. He has the courage to speak the power. You guys know that well, right? You know, he's not afraid to say the hard things. You know, he shows the humility to stand down and, you know, bring other people into the process. You know, hey, you know, Susan, you and I have worked on a lot of different things together. He's like, hey, you got this. Doesn't all have to be about him, it has to be about the greater organization. You know, that idea, he encouraged me to keep asking questions. And he encourages us all to keep asking questions. And he's inspired us. And that's sometimes really hard to do. In addition, you know, I thought to myself, I said, you know, when Eric gets onto a situation, he's like a dog with a bone, right? I should say like a cat with catnip, right?
I'm not gonna say it.
He continues, he fights, he fights, he fights. He doesn't let it down. And you know, that idea about focusing on what really matters is really important. Again, another example of leadership. And the ability to cooperate. He doesn't, I mean, let's face it, in this room we don't all agree. We're all over the map politically. We're all over the map, you know, from a philosophical perspective in a lot of different areas. But when we're here, he has this unique ability to bring us all together and focus on what's really important, and to cooperate and bring us together. So with that in mind, you know, I've read a lot of leadership books. My wife, you know, she's encouraged me to do this stuff, and she's done it as well. And I think what we experience every meeting, in between meeting, is the embodiment of leadership. So thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it.
That's all you like to see.
Okay, and to wrap up our program, I would like to invite Joe Murphy, Susan George, and Ann Green to come up for our presentation.
Is this the money part?
Please join us.
Yeah, I want to get a big check. I got screwed in my bar mitzvah.
Well, that was inflation.
So today you are a fountain pen.
A Mickey Mantle autographed baseball player.
Look at this one.
Oh, that is
Oh, that is
gorgeous.
You have to open it first because my remarks will give it away and I don't want to spoil it, so.
So I open it now.
This is a token of everyone's appreciation for
Okay.
you and all you do.
All right, so when Jewish people get gifts, what they do is they shake it to see if the money comes out. Okay.
You just tear it off.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna. Oh my God, that's so cool! Oh my God!
Is that an aspen tree?
Here you go. This signed, numbered print of the 300-year-old John Goodway sycamore tree, located just off Linglestown Road, was painted by local watercolorist David F. Lenker. The framing was done by Framed in St. Thomas. We're keeping it local.
Thank you.
It is possibly, right, Joe, the oldest living tree in Pennsylvania.
400 years old.
It's okay. I already made one mistake.
Almost as old as Watson.
Its trunk is 25 feet in circumference. It stands 107 feet tall, and the branches span 153 feet out. It is named after a Native American who is buried nearby. David Lenker, 1917 to 2009, was famous for his watercolor subjects, which are indigenous to rural PA or reflect his interpretations of his journeys to the eastern seashore, Arizona, Bermuda, Hawaii, and Europe. We chose this print to honor you, Eric, because like you, the sycamore has stood tall, borne witness to, and weathered many things with strength and grace.
Wow.
We also loved this Malay proverb because it echoes your sense of humor. A tree with strong roots laughs at storms. And Joe, I don't know if you want to expound on the tree or
No, Joe, you've got to speak.
Is this a protected tree?
I'll let Joe.
The tree sits right off of Linglestown Road in Woodview, and it sits back from the road. It's privately owned. For many, many years, the Township has tried to purchase the tree. We want to preserve it. It is being protected, but it's not protected by the state. The state recognizes a tree in Lancaster County as being the oldest tree. Now, at some point, we have been fighting back and forth with our tree. The tree, there are as many stories about this tree as there are books written. The story that we like the most is that it is 400 years old. Linglestown Road used to be an Indian path that went from the east to the Susquehanna, which was the north-south route for the Five Nations. Underneath that tree, for many, many years, the Native Americans from upstate New York, the Five Nations, used to meet with the Lenape, with the Conestogas, with the Delawares, meeting underneath that tree. It was known as the meeting tree. John Goodway was the last Indian born in Lower Paxton Township, and when he died, it actually was Lower Paxton Township. He died around 1805, and he was buried 100 feet north of that tree. Now, if that is true, that would be in the middle of Linglestown Road. But we figured that his body is someplace around there. Now, if we could talk to the town manager and we could dig up a little bit of Linglestown Road, we might be able to find it. But that basically is the story on the tree. It still is there. You can drive by and see it. Most people go by it every day and don't realize it's there.
Yes? Oh, I'm sorry.
I never even
Where's the access?
See, is that complete? Pardon? We're done. Okay. So what do we do now? We're done. Okay, just mingle and pass the hat for my retirement. Thank you so much.